Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Kuwait University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 9 of the subject of Object-Oriented Analysis and Design, in which we are going to discuss the project vision and scope document. Dear student, this is very important topic because in the project vision and scope document we list down the different types of the features of the project. And different types of the features are in fact the different functionalities of the object-oriented system. So that's why this topic is much relevant with the object-oriented analysis and design. These are different contents, and here we will discuss the establishing the project vision and scope document in our lectures. Then we have the vision and the scope document. It contains the topics of the problem statement. The problem statement is in fact the statement which contains the problem of the user, that what sort of the solution we are going to provide to the end users. The problem statement has the subtopics of the project background. Here the project background is discussed. Then we have the list of stakeholders involved in the project and also the list of the users, and importantly the risks, which are the factors which can affect the quality, cost or schedule of the project. Also we have some assumption as well. Also we have the vision of the solution, which is the second important section of the project vision and scope document. It contains the topics of the vision statements, list of the features, scope of phase release, which is the optional features here, and features that will not be developed. So we start all these topics in this lecture. Establishing the project vision and scope document. Before starting the project, it is very much important to define the scope of the project. This is the important responsibility of the software project manager, who is responsible to define the scope here. The project manager has a unique role to define the project vision and scope. In the start of the project manager defined its scope. Only inexperienced project managers can define a scope of the project properly. By the scope of the project means that what is the domain of the project, what are different features in the projects, and what is the business value of this project. Here, every stakeholder is responsible to define the scope, and from every stakeholder, the project manager takes input into the scope. Means that from every project stakeholders, who are the people who involved in the development of the projects, their feedback is obtained, and then that is converted into the scope of the project. But it is the only responsibility of the project manager to define a proper scope and vision of the project here. Now, to define the scope of the project, which is very much productive activity, the project manager can do that scope of the project by different ways. And importantly, the project manager can write the scope of the project in the practical and in the document format. Now, the scope and the vision document, which is the vision and the scope document, is the project manager's tool for doing that. Means that here the project manager writes a cohesive and concise and complete documents which define the scope and vision of the project. Now, what should be the contents of the vision and the scope document? There are two important sections of the vision and the scope document. The first one is the problem statement. As its names indicate, the problem statement defines the problem completely. And the second section of the vision and the scope document is the vision of the solution. So the first section defined the problem and the second section defined the complete solution of the problem in the document format. The first section, which is the problem statement, has also subsections containing project background, stakeholders, users, risks, and assumptions. And the second section, which is the vision of the solution, contains the topics of vision statement, list of features, scope of fees released, and this section is optional, means that if it is not in the vision or in the scope documents, it will not affect the document. But sometimes this is very much important, that how many fees we have released. If it is first time the document has been created and it is the first prototype, or if there is no certain space are released, then this section will not be in the scope, vision and scope document. And the next subsection is the feature that will not be developed. Means that some features which are not necessary and that are in fact defined by the customer in software requirement specification document, but we should remove these features because these are unnecessary features. Now we will explain each and every these contents in detail. Number one, project background. In the project background, the background or the summarized format of the project is presented here. So in this section, the project manager writes a brief summary about the problem, which will be solved by the project. So it provides a brief history of the problem. Brief history of the problem means that for how long time this problem is existing, and an explanation of how the organization justified their decision to build the softwares which will address or solve this problem. So here the project manager tried to explain the complete problems and also define the reasons that why this problem should be solved through the software. In this section, which covers the reasons that the problem is existing and also organization of the history that with the problems, means that for how long time this problem is existing, what are their consequences over the organization, and also what are the previous projects which are undertaken or which were in fact completed try to address that. For example, if there is certain the manual systems which addresses these problems or which solves to this problem that are also defined in the project background. And if there is another softwares which were brought for that solution of that problem that are also mentioned in the project background sections. And also it defines the decision to begin this project was reached. Means that what are the decisions that have been taken to complete this project. So these are the project background statements. Next section is the stakeholders. This is the subsections of the project background in which all the list of the stakeholders is defined in the bulleted list. Now remember that the stakeholders are those people which were involved in the project or were affected by the problem. For example, user is one of the stakeholders. Project manager is also a top stakeholder. Similarly, designer, developers, system analyst, testers, and maintenance employee all are the stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people which are involved in the project, or their feedback should be obtained. So here we provide all the list of the stakeholders that are ready to perform its actions during the project development. Now, each stakeholder is in fact may be referred by the name or by the title or by the role. For example, support group manager, senior manager. So each and every stakeholder should have its own name or its own role. The needs of each stakeholder described in the few sentences as well. For example, why user needs this project? Because user want to store the queries here. For example, if it is the student's record system project, then one of the user of this project is the student. For example, students can view their marks, students can view the assignments, students can view different exam papers, etc., or the course contents of the lessons. So here, the student is one of the important stakeholder of the student information system project. Next section is the section C, which contains different users who will utilize or use the project. This is also a bulleted list of the different users involved in the project. Users are the most important stakeholders of the project because user has to use the project, so that's why their feedback is very much important. As with the stakeholders such as users, they can also be referred with the name or with the role. For example, support representative, quality editor, and home website users. So the users are those people who will directly perform the input-output operations of the project. So there may be many users and it is usually inefficient to try to name each one. For example, there may be multiple users at the end side. Student is one of the users, similarly teacher is also another user, but there may be the admin as well and there may be multiple admins. For example, one admin is responsible to upload the student fee and the other admin is also responsible to upload the student marks in the exam section. So it is not necessary to name all the users here. But it is very best way to name all the user. The name of each user is described here, meaning that we have also described the needs of each and every user here. So in this section, we will describe different user and their needs. And also we can call these users through their role, not with their actual names. Because the role defines the functionalities of the systems. The next important section is the section of the risks. Risks are certain factors which can affect the quality, cost, or schedule of the project. The risks are those contents of the project vision and scope documents in which we define each and every problems that may arise during the development of the project. This section has the most important potential risk to the project, and the risks are in fact defined by the brainstorming sessions of the project teams. In the brainstorming sessions, we conduct different interviews or different meetings of the project team members. That what kinds of the problem that can arise during the project and what we should do to resolve these problems. Different risks have important external factors which can impact the project, or the issues are the problems, and that can potentially cause the project delay or rise issues. Mostly, the risk can delay the project or also raise different issues during the project. For example, it can affect the project financially and the project may be lost as well. For example, if there are certain reasons the project is delayed, so that will affect the project budget. For example, if the potential components are not available at the right times and that are delayed, so with the delay of the project can also be delayed. The process of assessing and mitigating risk below can be used to generate the risk for these sections. So we have multiple risk resolution factors or risk resolution techniques which can resolve the risk. For example, if there is the risk of the project delay due to staff turnover, then we have as techniques that the project event should be overlap with the different staff members. Means that we have to overlap or to just shuffle the tasks between different staff members of the project. By this way, they have the expertise of each and every features of the project and each or every statements or the each and every activities will be resolved. For example, if there is a person who is analyst and now in the next section we will provide him or her the task of the testers, because with the current project he may be the analyst and then in the next project he may become the testers. So by this way they will get expertise of each and everything of the software project. And if there is the testers or the analyst is not available, then they can work for each others. By this way, they can in fact resolve the problem of staff turnovers, of the staff absentees. The next section is the last section, which contains the assumptions. The assumptions are in fact generated during the kick-off meetings with the different stakeholders. And these assumptions can be reviewed, and if any non-technical assumption, then that should be copied in these sections here. The assumptions are another solution of the problems. Now, if there are technical assumptions, then that's meaning assumptions which can affect the designs and development, but not the scope of the project, should not be included in these documents. Means that those technical assumptions which can affect designs and the development but not the scope of the project, they cannot be the part of the project vision and scope document. The estimated results will be then contains a record of these assumptions, but they cannot be useful for this particular audience. Now the project manager has to hold a brainstorming sessions with the teams to come up with the list of assumption instead. Means that the project manager will also perform a stakeholders brainstorming sessions in which there will be multiple assumptions will be summarized and listed down here. The second important section is the solution section, in which the first content is the vision statement. The vision statement contains the goal of the solutions. Means that here we will define the vision of the solution here, which describes what is the expected outcome of the project. Means that how should be the solution here. It contains the explanation that what is the purpose of the project is, and this should be in fact having with the reasons and a solid justification for spending the time, money and resources on the project. So here we will provide the complete justifications and the reasons for spending the different budgets over the projects, and also spending the time schedules over the project and different resources on the project as well. The best times to write the vision statement is to talking directly after the stakeholders and the user, and then write down their needs or requirements. And with that needs We have also to specify the money or the budget required to accomplish that needs and also the resources required to complete these needs. So we have to define complete needs or requirements of the users and with respect to their budgets and resources required to complete that needs. By this time, a concrete understanding of project should be starting to gel. Means that we have obtaining the complete understandings of the project. So the vision statement gives us a concise view or the idea about the project, that what the project will achieve when the project will be completed here. Next important step is the list of features. In the list of features, we define complete list of different features which will be used as the functionalities of the project. So here we provide a list of cohesive areas of the softwares which is in fact defined by the needs of the projects or the needs of the services or capabilities that is to provided to the end users. The cohesive area means that there may be certain sort of the overlapping areas, and that can be in fact defined by the needs of each and every stakeholders. In fact, the user performs an active roles here because the user defines different set of the services that he or she is expecting from the project. Here, list of features also may be certain sort of the software packages, means that different classes define the list of features and different objects which encapsulate different classes also define the list of features, because the object contains the data member and member functions and each and every function is in fact the list of features. So here different software packages which are in fact engineered or produced by the software developers can be the list of features here. The project manager can choose the number of features in a vision and scope document by changing the levels of details or the granularity of the each features, or by combining the multiple features into single one. Sometimes we can divide a list of features into multiple sub features as well. For example, printing is one of the functionality, but printing contains different other features as well. For example, page layout is one of the features, page setup is another feature. Similarly, printing is another feature which comes in fact in the printings. So one feature contains multiple sub features. So here we will can also combine multiple feature into the single one. Here, sometimes features are small or big. Some feature may be the smaller one and some will be the bigger one. For example, login is one of the features, which is a smaller feature, and some one are very big. For example, insertion is a big feature, or selection or searching is another a big feature. Here we will apply a certain filters which will help us to select the problem. So it is useful to describe the products in about the 10 features in a vision and scope documents. So every product contains at least 10 big features, and the big features contains also a sub small feature as well. So we in fact documents the project vision and scope documents in the form of the list of features, and there may be at least 10 features in the documents. But if we define more feature, it will produce the problem of the complexities here. So in the one project vision and scope document that contains must be more cannot be more than 10 features, because most people will read it and may be uncomfortable with it if there are more than 10 features. So that's why list of features should be 10. Some obvious features can also be eliminated. For example, the login features can be eliminated here. So here we provide the most important and necessary features in the project vision and scope documents. That is the reason that when we want to add too many features, this will overlap or run the most readers. Means that they will become tired by reading that sort of features. And extra features add extra times and efforts to the project and makes it difficult to be unrealistic and to become accomplished. So that's why we have to avoid by listing a lot of features in the project here. Scope of the phase released, and that is the optional phase of the project vision and scope document. If it is the project which is first time is being developed, so that's why this feature will not be available with us because we have no certain previous prototype here, so that's why that cannot be in the project vision and scope documents. If it is a new project, then this section will be optional, and if it is in effect the maintained project means that if there is the feature, the other components of that project was developed in the past, so that's why then we will define the scope of phase release section here in the project vision and scope document. So sometimes software projects are released in different phases. So the version of the software with the some subsets of the feature is released first, and then the newer and more complete version is released later. So here already released features will be implemented in these sections, and here we will define all these features in here in this section. This section contains a complete plan of the phase release. If it is a approach is to be taken, then this is useful when there is important deadlines for software, but developing the entire software project by that deadline would not be unrealistic. So if you want to achieve the deadlines, then the scope of phase release is very much important. So here we define all the scopes of those features which have been released or which are going to be released here. The important, most common ways to accomplish this release is to divide the feature into two or more releases. So, we have to define the date of each and every releases here. It is better to release to define the date and divide the features into two or more releases here. In this case, this section should contain the specifically when those versions will be released and in which features will be included in each version. So here we will define different versions of the software systems, and each version contains multiple list of features here, and list of features should be not more than 10 here. Features that will not be developed. This is the final section of the project vision and scope document. Here we will list down all those features which will not be developed and that may be unnecessary. So features which are often left out of the project on the purpose should be mentioned here. When the feature is explicitly left out of the software, it should be added to this section to tell the reader that the decision was made to exclude it. So also we have to tell the reader that why these features are excluded from the project, because sometimes the project users or the stakeholders do not identify the certain features which are very much important, but they identify or define those features which are unnecessary. So here in this section, we'll define all those unrealistic features which are not necessary, and these are unrealistic as well because due to the deadline issues, we can also sometimes eliminate the important features here. So by removing one or more features from the software, in which case the removed feature should be moved into this section here that we will not implement due to the deadline issue. These are not important. So if they are important and we are not implementing due to the deadline issues, so we will consider these features in the next version. So The reason that these features should be removed rather than deleted from the document is otherwise readers might assume that they are overlooked and brought up to in the review. So this is specifically important during the review of the documents because it allows everyone to agree on the exclusion of the features or the object to it. So everyone should agree here to remove the certain feature which will not be developed, and everyone uh, has the rights of to object that why that is not in the list of features that will not be developed here. So everyone can discuss certain features here. Now dear students, this is the end of this lectures. These are two important books. You should study these books. The first one is the software engineering best practices lessons from the successful project in the top companies, written by Keppers McGraw-Hill's 2009. ISBN number is mentioned here. The second one is the software engineering Ein Summerwald Practice Hard 2010 book. These are very much important and quite easily be understandable books. So you should study these books for your complete guidelines or the study over the project vision and scope documents. If you have still have any question, you can ask this question through the email. My email is here in the footer section of this slides, m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. I will wait for your question and I will respond to you as soon as I will get your emails. Thank you very much.